How's it going? My name's Dave Whipple and you're watching Push Radical. In today's episode, we're going to be dealing with knife blanks. Today, I'm going to go over one of my very first designs with you guys, what my thoughts are behind the design. We're going to start from a drawing on a piece of paper, transfer it to a template, put it on steel, cut it out, drill holes, and by the end of this video, we're going to have a finished knife blank that's going to be ready to go off to water jet. Stay tuned. So here's the knife design I'm working with right now. I love the way a Kephart feels, but the one thing about a Kephart that I've always thought I would change is the very tip. Now in a Kephart, you know, your tip is more like this. It comes more to a spear point. Center of the tip's right in the middle of the blade line, but just a little bit of a clip point on a Kephart. I would like to be able to use that point just a touch more, and with kind of more of a clip point end. I think it would make a Kephart design more usable. Nothing against the Kephart with a spear point. That's the classic Kephart knife. But even just a small alteration in the point, just to get a little more of a fine point. I always like a knife that's got a fine enough point that I can pick a sliver out if I have to. And generally Kepharts are just a touch blunt. Makes them a little more sturdy that way, but kind of loses some of the function of the point. So I'm basically going about the design process about the same way a second grader would do it. I draw a design on a piece of paper that I think is about what I want. I kind of refine the lines a little bit, then I stick a chunk of cardboard up underneath the paper and push real hard and trace the pattern onto the cardboard so it's kind of dented in. Let me show you. So I got a piece of cardboard, and this is the basic knife design that I'm working with. Just a very standard Kephart pattern, completely round butt end. I'm going to have a lanyard hole and 2 or 3 pins, not quite sure yet. The only real difference between 1,000 other Kepharts and this particular knife that I want to design is number one, the thickness. Now the thickness that I'm going with is it's a 151. Now a 151 of course is, you know, the next step up from 1/8 of an inch. The reason I want to go with 151 is I want this knife to be a no excuse knife. If you want to beat on it, I want to make a knife that somebody can beat on. And that's why for this first run I wanted to go a little bit heavier than the standard Kephart that you find out there. I want something that it won't need an excuse. It's going to be able to take that kind of a beating. Now the main difference here of course is this has more of a clip point than a standard Kephart. And that's not much. I mean, like this would be more like a standard Kephart. With just a little bit of an extra clip to it. The more usable the tip of the knife, the more valuable I think the knife is in general. But I don't want to get too thin on it. I want it to still have that Kephart durability. So just a slight differentiation there. I want a very, very basic handle and no fancy contours of any kind. Something that's just going to be very easy to accept. You can pick it up and it's going to feel good. So what I've done to get my pattern here is I just take and lay my drawing out on top of my cardboard and just press that design into the cardboard itself. Just by basically putting a lot of pressure on the ink pen and tracing it. Now I've basically got the knife pattern more or less the way it's supposed to look on this piece of cardboard. I'm just going to cut it out. Clean up the lines a little bit. Now let's cut it out. Now one thing that this pattern is going to allow me to do, it's going to allow me to either make this particular knife or it's going to allow me to make a more traditional Kephart knife if somebody wanted a more traditional spear point. You can always take away material, but you can't put it back on. By leaving just a bit of a clip point, I'm going to have enough material that in the event somebody wants a spear point, I can take the blade as it exists and take a little bit of material off it and give them a spear point. So we're going to transfer that pattern onto this piece of, this is 1084. This is not the steel that these knives are going to be made out of. The first run of these knives are going to be D2. This is also 1/8 inch thick, and the first run of these knives, they're going to be 151. This 1084 is going to be used for the pattern. Once again, just like a kindergarten project, we're tracing. There we go. As far as the pinholes in this, I know it's getting a lanyard hole. And the reason I'm definitely going to put a lanyard hole in it is because half of everybody out there is going to want that hole. The other half are not going to care whether it's there or not. So I think it's ultimately a better idea to put one in, and then you always have the option. Let's run out to the garage, pull out the metal cutting bandsaw, cut this pattern out. You know what, actually, let's do this again. Reason being is, the back of this pattern is pretty much straight. So why in the world would I want to do that much extra cutting? I'll line this knife up with the edge of the steel. I won't have to make a gigantic straight line cut that I don't need to do. There. That's the ticket. See, on the other side, I put it right in the middle. Just put it with this straight edge, so I don't have to cut this whole giant straight edge. Alright, so we've got our blank totally cut out. We've got it ground down. You know, I don't have a small wheel set, so I can't really get this inside corner that well. But when I get the knives back from Waterjet, I'll have the tool to make this inside radius better. What I think I'm going to do for this first run, I'm going to do 1/8 inch holes. That way when I get my stuff back from Waterjet, I can make them whatever I want. I can ream them out to 1/4 or 3/16 or whatever I want. That way I can use Loveless, I can use Corby's, and I don't have to make any of those decisions before it goes to Waterjet. We'll just go with 1/8 inch holes, except for the lanyard hole. Now my thought for this first run is I'm probably going to do a lot of my handle shaping off the knife, and then I'm going to leave the rivets just a touch proud and peen a solid pin. So you've got a nice mushroom at the end of the pin. It's never going to pull out, and you're never going to pull the scales off of it because of the peen work on the outside. Okay, now I've got my pattern, and I've got my pattern that's going to go to water jet. And I just want to line them up and double check. Make sure they're about what they're supposed to be. Oops. For instance, I take right in front of the finger guard here. I'm showing about 1.175 on my dial caliper, and when I check my pattern I've cut out right about the same place, I'm about 1.195. So right here in the blade area, this is about 20 thousandths over, and that'd be kind of good. It'll give me a little bit to play with once these things are, you know, back from water jet. Now the other area that really concerns me is right here in the finger, you know, your first finger area, and this is about 1.160 on the steel pattern, and about the same spot on the pattern. It's about 1.135. There's about 10 thousandths extra in this area. There's about 20 thousandths extra right in this area. The overall length is pretty much the same. All the other dimensions look about the same, but the blade is a little thicker in the actual steel pattern. The length is the same, but that's good. That will actually give me just a little bit to work with, because if it was the actual finished size, you know, you got to clean up these edges and you're going to remove material. So I think I'm going to stay with what we have right here. Let's put a center line on this, and then let's drill some holes. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a center line on this, basically eyeballing it. And then I'm going to pick out pin locations I like. Okay, that's probably about right, because some of this is going to come out. I think what I want is I want one right about here. I think I want one right about here. And then the lanyard hole is probably going to be, you know, I could just make that lanyard hole right on the center line. Something like that. This one being just about right on the center line. Of course, all these are going to be 1/8 inch pilots. And then I'll actually, when they come back from water jet, I'll punch them up to whatever I want. Because I think I'm going to do a variety. I think I'll do some Corby, some Loveless. But I think most of it I'm going to do just peened solid pins. I like it. Let's go drill it. Alright, now what I'm going to do with this guy is I'm going to put a bunch of 1/8 inch holes in it where I want my pins to go, where I want my lanyard hole to go. When I take it to water jet, they're going to scan this. They're going to, you know, turn it into AutoCAD. I'm going to have them take the holes I put and undersize them by a couple thousandths of an inch. So when I get them back, I can actually ream them to the exact size. But just to put these pins in their location, I'm going to go ahead right now and drill these holes. Before I go and drill that blank, I'm going to take each one of these places where there's going to be a hole and just put a bit of a divot in there with a center punch. You can hear the well. It's right underneath the camera here in the garage. Somebody's taking a shower inside. That looks to be about right. Again, this is a little bit off center, but I'm going to end up taking a bit of this meat off because this is a little thicker than my original pattern. Now for this last hole, it's going to be an 1/8 right now, but I'm going to take and find myself like a 3/16 bit, and that'll be bored out to be the final size for the lanyard hole. Because I don't need to play with the size of the lanyard hole, but the other holes I may change. Alright, so now I just drilled out the lanyard hole. So now I've got the lanyard hole and the 3 holes for the rivets. What I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to save this first hole, of course, and I think I'm going to put one more hole right in here, and that way I can either make a 3-pin version with a lanyard hole, or I can make a 2-pin version with a lanyard hole. I think that's about it right there. Yep, that'll work. Alright, I think I'll put that 3rd hole right there, or 4th hole. There, I think that's about right. That way I can either do a 2-pin version with a lanyard hole, or I can do a 3-pin version with a lanyard hole. So it'd be 1, 2, or 3, or 2 and a lanyard. So I think that's about it. I think that's about as far as I'm going to go right now with this blank. As far as I'm concerned, it's ready to head to water jet, get blasted out, and once I get my knives back, I can start grinding, and then off to heat treat. I want to take a minute right now just to say thank you to everybody that's subbed to this channel. By the time you guys watch this, the sub count will probably have just rolled over 20,000 subs, which is, you know, it's a big milestone. I've been at it almost 2 years now, and I have to say, you guys are the best. I think you guys really are the best group of subscribers in YouTube. I rarely ever get just negative comments or nasty comments. Just a lot of good folks out there, lots of good comments, lots of good back and forth, and I love that about YouTube. I definitely don't feel like it's a burden to answer a comment. I feel like it's a blessing that somebody's enjoying the content and wants to talk back and forth about what's going on in the videos. So in the future, you know, Lord willing, the channel's going to keep growing, but I'm going to still try to answer every comment for as long as I possibly can. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the videos coming up this year, and thank you guys so much for just being such a great group of people. And I just want to give a shout out at the 20,000 sub mark. Thank you much. My name's Dave Whipple. You've been watching Bush Radical. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and sub button, and we'll see you on the next one. And be radical, eh? See you soon.